I have a passion to warn people, but I'm also angry at these control freaks, these anointed ones, this scientific dictatorship. They're all collectivists, globalists, who openly say they want to wipe most of us out so they can have their own world government. And you better believe lithium in the water and viruses that attack your brain and attack the hormone uptake receptors so that you can't get angry and can't defend yourself. I mean, they're openly saying this. Oh, we're going to make you a kindler, gentler humanity. We're going to decide. No, I want my passion. I want my strength. Okay, I don't want to be turned into a cowardly jellyfish. I want my anxiety. I'm supposed to have anxiety. Let me tell you, when I got up at 6 a.m. this morning, I jumped out of bed knowing this info. I don't get tired like most people because I'm in survival mode. And they talk about turning off the survival mode. And that's what lithium, that's what fluoride. But now they have shots where they're just going right to the end. They're just skipping right to the end game and saying, we'll just irrevocably do this to your brain. And who knows what other tissues it's going to attack. But here's the London Telegraph. Flu jab linked to fits, that's what they call convulsions in England, in under fives, officials say. And it goes on to say, doctors have been told not to use a particular flu jab on 1,010 children under 5 after it was linked to a 10-fold increase in fits. It can be revealed. Doctors should stock alternative vaccines, that means doesn't have these adjuvants, for under 5s who are due to have the seasonal flu vaccine this winter. A letter from the head of the Immunization and Department of Health has said. So see, the cover-up's unraveled in Australia and England, the same things in Australia. The action is being taken at a rate of convulsions caused by, and then it goes on, that was 10 times higher than normal. A rate of convulsions 10 times higher. Dr. Blaylock, that's exactly what you've talked about here on air.
That's right. And you remember, what did the CDC recommend? Well, the most important person to vaccinate is those under 5, the very ones who got the seizures. And I told your audience that that's the ones that are going to be most susceptible to having seizures after this vaccine and having brain damage after this vaccine. They denied it. They said it was crazy. And look at them now. Now they're having to come with hat in hand. Oh, gee, we've created seizures in all these children. Be sure and don't give it. But I had the mechanism published in the medical literature. All they had to do is read it. But they wouldn't do it. They were so cocksure they had the answer to everything. Well, this is the problem with this collectivist Gnostic idea of elitists running everything. They get a utopian vision in their mind. They see it so clearly. If they can just hammer people in the head and make them do it, we're going to enter utopia. And it turns into a nightmare. And then they fight to preserve the nightmare, and it becomes a worse nightmare. And this is what we're facing right now. Oh, they think, if we could just redesign the human brain, God made it wrong. If we could just redesign it, people won't be violent, they won't want drugs, and they'll want to do what the government says. And so this is their vision, and they're fighting to do it. And anyone who says you shouldn't do that, you're destroying individuality. Well, you're just a nut. There's something wrong with you that you would even think in resistance.
You're just a nut. You don't want to take mercury shots. You don't want to have lithium toxic put in your water to make you submit. Right. You don't want to have viruses attack your brain. You're some kind of crazy person. But look, their front is they want to help us. As you know, when you read their literature, this is about dumbing us down and getting us ready for the next more intensified waves of stealth degenerative kill systems.
Well, Aldous Huxley wrote about it in his book, Brave New World Revisited. At least 50 years ago? He wrote it in great detail. Well, he knew what was going on and where we were headed. Delgado wrote about it in his book. It was one of the world's greatest brain scientists. He wrote about it at least 30 or 40 years ago, saying where we were headed, that the last bastion of these people was to take away human individual thought.
That's right. We're waking up. We're saying no to the government health care. We're saying no to the tyranny. We're saying no to the attack on the family. And their answer is to come out smugly, and it's not just a few of them. There's literally thousands of them, and say, I mean, the cover of Time magazine every week is the end of summer. You don't deserve to have your kids. It's bad to have children. Abortion is good. Euthanasia is good. I mean, it's a culture of death. And I guess the ultimate expression of control freakism is being able to have control over our lives and re-engineer who we are. And then you look at these so-called elitists. They're not elitist. They've just been willing to do whatever it takes to get power, and they're a bunch of dysfunctional, ugly, mentally ill scum. They are actually the psychopathic minority, and more the science shows with computer modeling that the knowledge of the crowd, the knowledge of common sense is much more sane and accurate than what we get out of the so-called intellectuals. My mom was watching Jim Laird on some PBS thing about how the alternative media has taken over the mainstream media. And he said, that's okay. There'll still be intellectuals like us and journalists and all these little fake intellectuals who probably got IQs near room temperature. I found out these people are usually just total morons, but they still have that dominant instinct to take control of you. And they all just clapped and loved it and got creamy-eyed looks in their faces that, yes, we're going to run it. You know, we're the bosses. In closing, what do you have to say, doctor, about the government takeover of healthcare? Because now they admit pre-existing conditions aren't covered. They are going to lower the standard of care. The bioethicist at the government, Rahm Emanuel's brother, there are going to be death panels. They are going to cut your care. You know, you don't need that eye surgery when you're 65.
Well, all of that is exactly true. And we've heard these assurances that, oh, this isn't going to happen. Oh, that's just a bunch of paranoids trying to scare you. Then after the bill passes, every one of those things happen. This has happened over and over and over. You remember the 1964 Civil Rights Act. It said in there specifically, no quotas shall be used. Well, it wasn't long after the bill was passed, quotas are used. They're still used. So any assurance by these people is absolutely worthless. They intend absolute control over your life from A to Z. You control your children, the education of your children. This bill takes over all medical education. If you read it in detail, it says the Secretary of Health and Human Services will develop the curriculum for med schools, will appoint professors, will develop educational programs in dental schools, medical schools, nursing schools. The whole system will be designed by these utopian elitists, which is nothing but an absolute nightmare world. No Hollywood writer or novelist could write anything more frightening or scary than this bill. It's just terrifying.
I've got a Sunshine Project group of documents from a decade ago with the Army and Marines funding scientists to come up with drugs and injections to make the public servile. This is full spectrum dominance. And now I have Wired Magazine today, Army's vaccine plan, inject troops with gas-propelled, electrocharged DNA. And they say, well, old-fashioned vaccines can cause sterility in humans. They actually suddenly now admit that. But don't worry. We're now going to laser beam it into you, into your cells itself, and we're going to test these vaccines that will help the troops behaviorally and physically, and we can give them hundreds of vaccines per laser injection. I mean, this is a nightmare dystopia, not a utopia.
Exactly, and the very fact they're talking about putting vaccines in foods, that gives you no choice at all. You go to the supermarket, your fruits and vegetables and meats are filled with vaccines. This is the way they're vaccinating against diseases in animals in Europe, rabies. They put it in the food, and they put it out for the animals to eat. And they're vaccinated because it goes through the GI's immune system, GI tract.
And Bill Gates has now announced people won't take their vaccines. He's coming out with mosquitoes that are genetically engineered that carry whatever vaccine they want to deliver. And the UN is working on bananas to give to third world populations because they're refusing the shots. The, quote, ignorant savages know they're being killed with this stuff. You go back 50 years ago, they would travel 100 miles to see a white witch doctor, as they called them, because back then the medicine was good. Now they run, whether it's Asia or the Middle East or Africa or the villages, they run when the UN-funded trucks show up, Dr. Blaylock.
Well, and they were smart to run. I mean, you look at Nigeria when they came in with the polio vaccine. Oh, they were going to save them all from polio. They injected them. They produced a vaccine-induced polio epidemic in children and adults and killed a number of people and left them paralyzed. Well, in their own publication, they admitted, oh, yes, the vaccine was the cause of the epidemic, but now that we've caused it, we can't stop. We have to vaccinate even more people. Well, these people were hiding in the bush to keep from being vaccinated, and then the World Health Organization and the IMF used their pressure to say, have the government of Nigeria say, if you don't get vaccinated, we'll take your children away and put you in prison. Well, it's pretty much similar to the policy they want to implement in the United States as well.
Well, I mean, that's the problem with government-run health care. In England, and you can pull this up, BBC, they're now putting newborns on list, basically probation, and at age 2, they start having physical meetings with them if their parents have, quote, bad DNA, if they were ever involved in crime. And I have the head of the Texas Psychiatric Association before the state board, and Susanna Hupp, the state rep, says, doctor, to the psychiatrist, not even really a doctor, but he calls himself that, she says, doctor, why are more than 2/3 of children in foster care on psychotropics? I have this in my film Endgame. And he says, well, that's easy. They come from bad gene pools.
Right. And this is exactly what you read in the eugenics literature in the 1920s and 30s in this country. And you read it in the 30s in Nazi Germany. They used the same justification.
Well, that's what they announce here. They actually brag that they're going to take over real MD, real Western medicine, and replace it. We already see it with the troops. When they get hurt, they just give them Prozac, and they're saying, we're just going to give you shots that cure your brain. I mean, this is a hostile corporate takeover, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This is a union of mega industry, international industry and government, which is the new socialism. The old socialism was government would take over the companies. Now the new socialism, no, we'll work together for the same utopian goal. So this is what you're seeing. International corporations are working with government to implement these draconian totalitarian plans.
Well, Dr. Blaylock, I'm not going to keep you any longer. We always appreciate it when you join us, but you have a lot of solutions, a lot of ways to at least partially reverse the toxicity that we've been exposed to, a lot of key information at BlaylockWellnessCenter.com. What are some of the things we'll find at the Blaylock Wellness Center?
Well, it has the books that I've published on this. The book Health and Nutrition Secret has a chapter on fluoridation that people need to read. It goes through the whole history and the medical findings. And the devious tactics that they've used. And it has some DVDs I've done, interviews, a lecture on nutrition and behavior. So it has a lot of material in there. You can link to my other website, which has the published papers I've written, the papers I've told you about, the immunoexcitotoxicity mechanism, which are free access. You can have those.
Well, doctor, in closing, what we've done here is, with our family doctors and with everyone, Rob Dew has done this, one of our camera guys, we just bring them your books, other scientists and researchers' books. We bring them the medical literature, and we say, we're not vaccinating our children. And by the way, fluoride's deadly. Here is stuff written by top doctors. And you come back a month later, and they're converted. You can't just sit there and say, oh, the government's poisoning that to make me serve them. I mean, because they've been preconditioned that that's kooky. You bring them a stack of books and news articles promoting lithium in the water and promoting vaccines that re-engineer the brain, they will wake up. And so even if you know all about this as listeners, you've got to warn everyone you know. You've got to get Dr. Blaylock's info out. So go to his website, buy the books, the DVDs, have showings at your church, have viewing. And in closing, Doctor, you've read their documents. I mean, they say they want to get rid of 80% of us.
Oh, absolutely. That's the big plan.